Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We've got a great show for you tonight. I want to thank all of you for tuning in this Thursday evening, February 16th of 2017. And as I always said, we are live Thursday evenings, normally from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast, and of course 4 to 6 for those of you under Pacific time. But thank you for joining me live this evening on blogtalkradio.com's Golf Talk Live. And just to remind everybody how to find the show, if you're unfamiliar or want to pass it on, you go to www.blogtalkradio.com and type in Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the main page. And of course, right at the top on the live broadcast, the current show will be there. For some reason, if you can't join us live, go to, again, blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and just scroll down the page to the on-demand section. As I've mentioned many times before, all of the programs are auto-recorded. So if you can't join us live, not to worry. You can go and listen to tonight's broadcast and any of the other previously aired broadcasts when it's convenient for you. At any time, during the live show, if you want to call in and speak with any of the guests, or if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make during our broadcast, you're welcome to do so. The number you can call in on is area code 646-716-4667, or you can email questions or comments to me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Always update through social media on the program at facebook.com. Go to Golf Talk Live blog, and you can do that, or you can also do on my personal page as well. I always update the shows there as well. And you can also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO, CEO being in capital letters. Got a very interesting show tonight. Joining me this evening is going to be Jamie Leno Zimron, who's been on the show many, many times, and I'll tell you about her in just a moment. And some new people have never been on the show. Connie Charles Dave Bisbee and Peter Fox will be joining in the conversation tonight. So let me just make a quick announcement first off about the program, and then I'll get into some of the introductions and bring my guests who are very patiently waiting. As I mentioned last week, first off, let me apologize for last week. I had a technical issue with my headset, and the first minute or two I wasn't able to hear my guests, so it was a little bit of a delay getting the start, so I apologize for any inconvenience. But the show is, of course, there in its entirety, so feel free to check that out. And as I did mention last week, starting March 2nd, we'll be sort of reigniting our famous Coach's Corner panel discussion. So that'll be the first discussion on Coach's Corner, which will take the first hour of the show, and then, of course, followed by a very insightful interview with my special guest that evening. But Coach's Corner will begin on March 2nd, and really looking forward to that. And speaking of which, I want to welcome back to the show Class A LPGA teacher professional Jamie Leno Zimron, who has been part of Coach's Corner team for many, many years now since we've been doing the show, and is always, of course, up to some interesting things. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the interesting things that she's doing tonight with the folks. She's a very passionate pioneer in body-mind approaches to peak performance and overall well-being, and she's been both a junior and senior golf champion, and is the founder of KiAi Golf Training and the KiAi Way Incorporated is her business, and also the EveryBusinessWoman Golf. She's also affectionately known as the Golf Sensei or Master Instructor, and brings a more holistic teaching approach to her golfing to all kinds of great executives and students that she works with out there. And she's also a fifth degree Aikido black belt, so very well physically fit as well. She's a psychologist, sports counselor, corporate speaker, and an executive coach. Next also is joining us tonight is Connie Charles. She's the founder and CEO of iMap Strategic Solutions, which we're going to be talking about tonight, and also iMap Golf. And she's also the co-author, along with our other special guest, PGA Pro Dave Bisbee. The book that they co-authored together is Back on Course, Driving Business Performance Through Golf. And Dave, of course, is the program director at Seven Canyons Golf Club in Sedona, Arizona. And there he leads their comprehensive game improvement center, combining golf instruction, custom club fitting, and mental conditioning for not just the new folks out there, but some of the seasoned professionals and also executive golfers out there. So both of them are going to be joining me. And rounding out our panel tonight, of course, is Peter Fox, and he is a founding executive producer of ESPN and has worked with many major corporations as communications consultant, and always had a passion for playing and teaching golf, and is a member of the iMap Strategic Solutions Advisory Board. So with that in mind, let me welcome Jamie, Connie, Dave, and Peter. Welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for having us all.
It was... And that was the edited version. I had to edit that down, as I said before, because there are many, many more accolades, and I'll try and throw a few more in there. First off, let me just add one thing. I know many of you have worked with Fortune 500 leaders out there, so very impressive resume for all of you out there. So we know there's lots of very important people out there that you guys have done some great work with, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. We're here to talk about iMap Golf, and that's what we're going to have the discussion about this evening on Golf Talk Live. So I think, Connie, as I mentioned off air, we're going to start with you. What is iMap Golf? Give us a sort of a general overview of what it is.
Well, iMap Golf is actually rooted in some of the corporate work that we've been doing over the last 25 plus years. And basically, our philosophy is that to achieve success in anything you do, you have to start with an understanding of who you are as a person. And so in our corporate work, we have developed an assessment process for helping people very quickly understand some very complex characteristics about who they are as individuals and as well as teams. And we've created a version of that applies to the golf game. But what we do is we basically map out a person's behavior in the work environment on 4 different levels. We look at what they love to do, what their strengths are, what they need to be successful, and then the all-important how we react when we get under stress. And then that creates a map of an individual. And once we understand the map, we know how to help you improve your performance, whether it be in the boardroom or out on the golf course. Very good.
Now, how did this sort of become developed? What was the, I guess, obviously, you explained what the purpose of it for, but how did this sort of come about? What made you decide this was something that was greatly needed in the industry?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Like a lot of things, it happened by accident. And I just happened to be the next phone call into one of our suppliers who works with us on developing this data. And they said, we just had this really strange phone call. It was from this guy who owns these golf schools, and he thinks there's an application of this to the game of golf. And that literally is how it all started. And so it was with one of the largest, I think, golf schools at that point in time, about 20 years ago now. And we worked with them to develop an application of this assessment about understanding who we are, but how it applies to the way you play golf. And so that's how it all emerged. And through that process, I met Dave, and we actually grew our consulting practice by hosting executive golf schools. And that's how we got launched. And we would invite executives to come spend a day with us, and they would get their swing problems fixed. And then at some point, somebody is saying, well, this has to apply back to the office in some way. And so we would then be able to talk to them not only about their golf game, but also about their leadership capabilities.
Right. Very, very interesting. Jamie, I'm going to ask this next question to you as a professional and also as a player. How and why are you involved, and what are some of the benefits as a teaching professional do you see in using iMap?
Well, I was actually thrilled when I met Dave, about 6 or 7 years ago. I did a video for the Golf Channel, and then he started telling me all about iMap, my team, and I met my leadership, I met my golf, and when I met Connie and really started to dig into the assessments and all the information there as a player and also as an instructor, it was kind of like the golfer in me, the teacher in me, and the psychologist in me, and the corporate trainer all went, whoa, this is where it's at. This is terrific. And what I would say as an LPGA pro, one of the things that we get schooled in a lot is what we call student-centered teaching. And that means really knowing who this person is who's trying to hit the golf ball, right? Because it's not only the club that's hitting the ball, it's really the person swinging the club. And that means the physical capabilities, the emotional makeup, the thought process, the mental game, all of that stuff is what really goes into this person that we are that swings the club that ultimately launches the ball and, gets a score, enjoys or doesn't enjoy, has all kinds of reactions out there to the successes and adversities. And, we look at a person's learning style, we look at, your left brain, right brain, all these kinds of things. But there's also, so much of the emotional makeup and the kind of self-talk and individualized approach, to our mental self-management that makes so much difference. And so, as a player and a teacher, it's like, why are we not using assessments more? And there are a few assessment tools out there specifically for golf, and not many, only a couple I know of at all. And iMap is just, in my estimation, the best one that I know of out there. And it's, it really speeds up the process for an instructor and for a student of knowing, like, what we're working with, yeah? So it helps that whole communication. It helps the student-teacher relationship. Again, it speeds up knowing that. It gives people tools, both to learn and also when you're out on the golf course to manage yourself in a better way. One of the things in, my work, KiAi Golf Training, Ki's your energy, right? That's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And I always say, ask the question about what makes your golf ball go. And when you realize that it's your energy that's making the golf ball go, then the next step is to say, we really need to be able to know we are better and to manage that energy in a better way. So that's what iMap gives such, a lot of detailed information about.
Right. Dave, I want to bring you in the conversation now, and I want to kind of flip this a little bit. Jamie's very eloquently explained a lot about from the teaching side of it, and obviously there's some benefits for the students. Give us a little bit more in depth, if you would, from a student's perspective, what they can learn about themselves going through this process, and why is it important for them to be assessed? What benefits are they going to receive by having their coach or their teaching professional do this assessment with them?
Well, I think to kind of go back to what Connie was talking about, when we first met, I was conducting golf schools, and the people who were come to the golf schools were obviously people who were of means, meaning that they worked for a living, and most of them were executives. So they started kind of looking at golf from a standpoint of how it related to what they did and their work life. Connie and I were introduced, and I used, I looked at all kinds of things back then to kind of give me a picture of how to connect quicker with that person, how to be able to relate to them faster, and how to make the instruction understandable for them. And when I met Connie, I took the Berkman the assessment tool back then, and it was a paper pencil process, but the what it told me about me was revealing in the sense that it identified certain things about my style of doing things, And when I looked at that in contrast to a student that I was working with, I found that, my assessment looked a lot different than that student's assessment, which really kind of turned the light on for me that so my way might not be the best way, and or the only way. And we really, it was a turning point in my teaching career. Having something that was as revealing to me as video. Video would show me what position the club was in, and I could share that with the student. I could show them where the club was at a certain point in the swing. This let me look between their ears and see what made them tick, and I could identify their strengths. I could tell if I was teaching to their need, and it really revolutionized the way that I approach teaching and coaching.
Let me ask you something on that lines, David, just to sort of reinforce it. I think one of the, and I'm sure as a teaching professional you would agree with this, that sometimes, and this is not a negative to the industry, but I think sometimes as teacher professionals, if we don't, have certain information, or we don't listen to the student and sort of go under assumption and build a plan or a process that maybe isn't going to be applicable for that particular student, because we're all built differently, we're all think differently. Does iMap give you a better grasp as a teacher professional of the individual student's needs and how you're best able to apply that, as opposed to some of the traditional ways that we've sort of gathered information from our students?
Yes. And in fact, one of the reports that it produces is a coaching report. And that coaching report tells you how to approach that particular student. When Connie and I started doing certification for teaching professionals, we'd get the people in the room and we'd say, that you are 100% successful with 25% of the market, and meaning that statistically their style and how they presented perfectly lined up with 25% of the public. And and the revealing thing from that standpoint was to say, we can give you tools to modify your style so that you can relate to 100%. And do you think that might improve your bottom line as a teacher if you were able to connect with all of those others the way that you do with that 25%?
Right. Peter, I want to bring you in now in the conversation, and I want to ask you a question sort of in lines of what I just asked David. I think one of the concerns that's been sort of brought to the surface in the industry over the last several years is that sort of one-size-fits-all golf swing, and we've certainly discovered here in recent years that that's not true, that everybody's different, everybody's unique. From your experience with iMap and obviously being a member on their advisory board, how do you see this really opening doors that maybe weren't open before for the teacher professional, for the student, at any level, student that could be a PGA professional or LPGA, but also even for the amateurs? What additional benefits do you foresee coming out of this process?
That's pretty simple, Ted. And I've been kind of preaching this to the choir as we continue to build iMap Golf, but and I think I'll draw a smile or two from my colleagues as I say this. But if I want to have a mental coach, I have a pick of about maybe 3,000 decent ones in America. That you could start with Sean Foley or not Sean Foley, but several of the other well-known mental coaches, but you won't hear the word emotion come out of their teachings. They might parenthetically say feelings and emotions, but what iMap has isolated is a way to deal with the emotional aspect of the game. And having been a guy who's had the yips, a guy who's lost three tournament playoffs, I understand what it is to gag when the time to play is. And when I saw the product, I said, you guys have got real estate in the golf business that nobody else has. And I've been kind of the cardinal of emotional intelligence for iMap Golf. And if you look at our website, you'll see that we reference the greatest players of all time. That would include Tiger and Arnold and Annika, all of whom specifically talk to managing emotions on the golf course being the key to win that every single champion winner has. And that's what Connie has, and that's what iMap has, and that's what drew me to the product 20 years ago, Connie, something like that anyway.
Connie, I don't know if you picked that up. Peter was asking or making reference to you. Did you hear that or no?
Yeah, I did, and you're right. I was chuckling, Peter. And yeah, it was about 20 years ago that we first met and started this journey. And I think one of the biggest changes that we've made over these years is, like Dave said, when he first started, he had to fill out this questionnaire that was paper and pencil. Well, now, given the evolution of technology, we've been able to create a simpler version of the questionnaire. We still have the high-performance one that we use in corporate environments, but the simpler version of this questionnaire that now can be used specifically for golf, and now you can get it in your living room.
Wow. Now, Connie, let me just shift. Sarah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
I just wanted to chime in a little bit more on what Peter was talking about in terms of emotional intelligence and really getting, I think we all know that what derails us a lot of times are our emotional reactions on the golf course. I mean, we get bummed out, we get pissed off, we get upset. Sometimes we even get so happy and overexcited that we don't perform as well, right? And so, managing our emotions, we always talk about the mental game. We don't talk about kind of the emotional mental game enough. And I think one of the brilliant things about iMap is that it focuses on what we each need in order to feel good and perform our best, and then what happens to us when those needs aren't getting met, or when we move into our stress reactions. And I think that is so important, because it's the stress that undoes us. It's the stress that gets in the way of making a 2-foot putt or a 6-foot putt or making a swing. And so when we can understand those stress reactions, which are, come out as negative thoughts or emotions that upset our ability to perform, well, we need to be able to manage that. We need to know a lot more about that. And so I think that's part of the real estate that Peter's talking about that just isn't covered by most things. And iMap, I think, is very strong in that way.
Right, and you're exactly right. The industry is starting to recognize, and has, for a few years now, the importance of emotions and starting to have that discussion. Before, we talked about the mental game, and it was more from a strategic standpoint on the golf course, because Nicholas and Arnold and even Tiger talked about that. But really, sort of another part of the equation, Peter, as you pointed out, is the emotional side. What people bring to the golf course. And I hear many times an example. If you've just had a big, difficult board meeting, and now you're coming to the golf course, and you're still, spinning those thoughts through your process, or maybe you've had a go or two at home with your spouse, and now you've headed to the golf course. You're now bringing that baggage, if you will, of emotions, and a lot of times it's be affected. So obviously, your product, Connie, is going to be able to help, certainly not in those specific areas, but certainly going to be able to help give you a better assessment of what's going on with the different students and so forth, and executives that you're dealing with, and you're going to be able to have the necessary tools to be able to help them manage that side of psyche, if you will, better, which will ultimately improve out in the golf course, correct?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'd also like to circle back on, we talked about how there's been this trend of one size fits all with the swing, and we know that that's wrong. And,
right.
And really when it comes to understanding the person, there's a complexity variable that we really need to grasp as well. And so our approach is really, it's not starting with a methodology, but it's starting with an understanding of the individual. And when we understand your uniqueness and what it is that causes you to move from strength to stress, then we know how to help you manage those variables that would cause that turn. We call it the stairway to golfing hell, you know. And there are things that you can do at that point in time when the behavior starts to move from strength to stress that can keep you in control of your game. And that's going to be unique to each individual. So that's why this assessment process is so important, because to figure this out on your own, you can do it, but it takes a lot of time. And that's
Sure.
one thing we don't have in the corporate environment or on the golf course anymore. We don't have the patience to wait. And so by using this tool, we actually get ahead of the curve in our ability to understand the uniqueness of that person and what's going to make a difference in their performance.
Do you think, well said, Connie, thank you. Do you think, and this is a general question to anybody that wants to come in, that there has been a greater emphasis on made by the industry as a whole on things like swing mechanics and short game, and all these things, of course, are important, and not enough on what we're talking about tonight. And the truth of the matter is, as Nicholas put, 90% of the game is between the ears and not, with the golf club. And I think that there's a certain element, right? I mean, I know that's watering it down, but that's essentially what we're saying, right?
It's the same thing everywhere. Whether you're in a company or whether you're dealing with a golfer, the same thing happens. It's
Sure.
easier to focus on what's hard, what's measurable, what's tangible. And we can see a club. We can look at the performance with video cameras or launch monitors or anything like that. And all the things that are collecting metrics these days are easy
right.
to do when it comes to the physical side of the game. The hard part is what's between the ears. And until now,
right.
there hasn't been a way to really get at that. And that's where the tools that we've developed here now turn what's typically considered soft into hard. We now have measurable metrics that will define the emotional side of the game. That's never been there before. And so I think the industry, whether it's corporate or whether it's even just specifically the golf, has always gone towards the easier part, which is measurable. Not that that's easy. I don't want to diminish it by any means.
Right.
But it's tangible. We can look at ball flight. We can look at speed. We can look at all of these things. And that's what business focuses on, and that's what the golf industry focuses on, because we can get our hands around it.
Yeah, and I think
also because it's packageable, saleable,
right.
and marketable with high-priced items.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the industry part of the game.
Right. Sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I always say it's the putter, not the putter. It's the driver, not the driver. And
right.
we focus on the driver club, and what about the driver person?
Right.
At the show, we were just at the PGA show last month in Orlando, and every year it's like, wow, it's kind of like this Disneyland of technology and the latest developments to help golfers. Now we've got chips you can put on every club and get all kinds of metrics on your swing speed and your distance and all kinds of stuff, which is just awesome. At the same time, where iMap comes in is in what I would call human technology, and that's what Connie was talking about. Some metrics whereby we can actually get a picture and get some measurements and get our hands and articulate more really who the driver, the person is, or the putter, the person is, so that that's the place that we can come in. And for me, it's like in business, I tend to be one of the human resource kind of business trainers, and I always tell people, we're going to go beneath the bottom line today. we can have all of our OD charts and our budgets and plans and everything else. But what we really need is to understand ourselves better and be sure that our communication and our relationships are going well. Then we can actually execute all of those plans.
Right, I agree. I think the other thing, and you raised an interesting point, Jamie. Obviously I didn't make it down, unfortunately, this year to the show, but obviously I've been there a number of times before. And you're right, the technology is just coming leaps and bounds, and it's very exciting. It's very interesting, but again, it's very limited to the area that it really handles. And I always said this on the show earlier: is these technologies are great as a tool for the coaches and the teaching professionals to be able to draw certain data, but they also have to have a little bit of a human factor involved, because there's going to come a day when the batteries die or the power goes out and that technology is not available. So you need to have the proper tools to be able to continue on with that lesson. And unfortunately, what's happened, and Jamie, I know you've seen it, and Dave as well, I'm sure you've seen it, especially some of the young up-and-coming instructors out there, really through no fault of their own, but just the way the industry, Peter, I think as you mentioned, is driving it, is, they're becoming so wrapped up in the technology that, I've seen people and heard people complain that their instructors aren't even watching them anymore. They're looking at a monitor and a screen. So they're, that sort of human contact is happened. And again, I'm not trying to bash this technology, but at the same time, it needs to be put in its proper place. And I think sometimes, for lack of better words, it gets abused a little bit. Connie, I want to go back to you real quick, if we can. You were recently on the Golf Channel talking about iMap Golf with Charlie Reimer. Tell us a little bit about your experience there.
That was great fun. And what we did, and Charlie was really interested in how this could impact his game as well. So he and Matt actually took the questionnaire and it produced their reports, and we took a snapshot of it, and I was actually able to interpret it for both of them while we were on air. And it really described the difference between the two of them, because we looked just specifically at the differences in the way they make decisions. And Matt was more prone to just making impulsive decisions. So, he might just grab a club out of his bag and hit the ball, whereas Charlie would take his time and evaluate things more strategically. So we just had a lot of fun on air using the two of them to actually illustrate the differences in their approach to the game.
Let me ask you,
Sure.
Were either or both surprised at some of the results that came out of the process? Were any of them kind of, say, wow, I didn't really think about that, or I didn't really know that about myself? Was any of that sort of unraveled?
I think it was more validating, and part of it is when you get people who are that much into the game of golf, they already have a level of awareness.
Right.
We talk about awareness from three different perspectives. First of all, it has to be accurate. So the image that you're reflecting to the world is sharp and clear. The second is it has to be authentic, which means it captures the you on the inside, not just the you on the outside. And then the third is you need to be able to articulate it, talk about it in a way that other people get it. So it was that third aspect that I think was surprising to both of them, was it gave them a language for talking about some experiences that they were having on a daily basis when they were playing golf. And it gave them a way for expressing it to each other that they had never been able to do.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, is you're right. When you get to that level of player, especially this day and age, most of them are much more self-aware. Do you see and I want to ask, and again, I'm going to open the floor to anyone that wants to jump in here. Let's go to the amateurs for a second. Obviously, this is very new for them. Many of the professionals that I'm sure that you guys have worked with or have exposed to iMap over the years that you've been doing it, get it. But for the amateur that just says, well, I just want to go out and, I want to be able to hit the ball better and things like that. How are you sort of introducing this to the less skilled golfers, to the newer golfers? And Dave, why don't I'll start with you, Dave, and then anybody else that wants to come in. How are you sort of introducing it to them and saying, this is something that you really need to do, and here's why? How do you sort of navigate that water with some of the newer golfers that maybe just don't understand the importance?
Well, it's really pretty simple. in fact, I think it's more simple with a newer golfer that is being introduced to the game, because it's really starting with a process where I'm saying, look, I need to know a little bit more about you. I need to understand what it is that will motivate you to do the work you're going to need to do to develop the skill to be proficient at this game, to stay in it as a lifelong player. And just simply by introducing it that way, that the starting point is, let me kind of take a look at what's going on inside you, so that this journey we're going to go on, we shorten that learning curve. I don't have to do the trial and error method and try to figure out how to connect with them. You connect immediately, because I really know that what's inside that person. So most of the time with the newer golfers, it's actually easier. With someone who's a bit seasoned, they've had all kinds of, like every golfer, as you go along, somebody's got an opinion, and somebody's going to, they're going to share that, and that starts with, well, I think your left ankle is out of position when you're doing the thing, and so, and I want to kind of go back to the actually what we were talking about with the merchandise show, because this show made me really think about that we have gotten so caught up in collecting data, and being able to project this data, whether it's launch monitors, whether it's simulators or anything like that. We've gotten so good at capturing something that we already know. I don't need a launch monitor to tell me that I've hit a shot that's a low trajectory and it's curving to the right. That seems like it's some magical thing, and that all of a sudden instructors are using a launch monitor to tell them that, what you can look at with your eye and see ball flight.
Right.
But that really hit me at the show this year, that we've got all of this stuff that's all brand new, that's telling us something that we already know, and what we don't know is what is going on inside that person, what it is that is what they're going to get out of the game. How do we get them engaged in it so that they get some intrinsic and extrinsic benefit from the game? And that's really, for us, that's the internal game that's revealed through iMap.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And I just want to add a quick point on that, Dave, about the show, and then we'll continue on. But you're exactly right. And one of the criticisms that I hear from students out there that have gone, I'll be quite honest. I'm more of a traditionalist. I certainly understand the technology. I use a little bit of it. I don't get as hard and heavy as a lot of professionals out there, just for that very reason. I think there's just too much data information, and I think what I've heard from a lot of people that have had that experience is that the information becomes overwhelming. It's really meant for the coach's assessment, not for the students. And I think a lot of times, as I said, especially the younger coaches and teachers coming up in the ranks, a lot of them get caught up in the technology, and it's kind of exciting and it's new, and they want to kind of show it off a little bit. And they've had hands-on knowledge and instruction in it, so they're familiar with the process. But a lot of that time is then trying to explain to the student what all this, the bells and whistles do, and the student's, sitting there like a slot machine with its, his or her eyes rolling in the back of their head, thinking, what's all this stuff mean? But at the end of the day, what's it going to really do for the golf swing? And when I get over that 3-foot putt that I've got to make for my club championship or in my corporate event, how's it going to, how's that going to help me when my knees are knocking? And the truth is, it's not.
Exactly.
Right?
It's not. You're exactly right. Yeah. You don't want to get over that 3-foot putt with a stream of data running through your head of all of the mechanics and the things that can happen and all of that. You want to get over that putt with a sense of calm and confidence and that comes from self-understanding. And I mean that's really the basis of it.
Right. Ted, if I could just jump in here with one other point on this, because I think this is really relevant. one of the things that has been a consistent theme at the PGA show for the last several years is the decline of the number of golfers. And you could argue back and forth what the data is really telling us, but it's still a common theme that you keep hearing. And one of the things that we get at, which is why Dave and I also wrote this book, Back on Course, is we think we figured out what it is that will keep people on course. And then it can roll up into how you use it from a business standpoint. But what we can identify is what motivates a person to play. And we think that's a critical element to the game, and where the whole industry is at right now is really about motivation. And it's going to be different for different people. Some people are going to be motivated by, the latest, widget that's put out there for the game.
Right.
Yeah. And there are a lot of companies that are betting on the fact that there are enough people out there that want to buy the latest driver. But there are other people that are just motivated by the pure zen of the game. And so understanding in advance what those hidden motivators are is what's going to keep people in the game. So that's what Dave was saying. When you know that, not only do you know how to help them improve faster, but you also know those triggers that are going to keep them motivated to play. And I think that's what the industry really needs.
Yeah, and the other thing, just add one more thing, and then Connie, I want to ask you about something else. I think one of the truth of it is that the industry here lately has talked about, we want to put the fun back in the game. We want people to go out and have fun, and they're throwing that word around a lot. And the truth of the matter is, and I'm certainly not trying to do a broad brushstroke here, but there's a lot of people that I've spoken to that said, they're not having fun anymore. It's become too difficult. It's actually become more difficult than it was 20 years ago for a lot of people out there. And the truth of the matter is, if the golfer is not having fun, they're not going to prioritize it in their busy schedule. And obviously time is a big factor for a lot of people, as we're all, doing different things, family obligations, business obligations, and things like that. So we're very critical of our time management. But if you have something that you really enjoy and you're passionate about, you'll make time for that. So people will make time for golf. But if it's become so complicated and so regimented, and I've got to do this and I've got to do that, and I've got to, whatever you want to put in there, then people are going to say, I just don't have time for it anymore. It's too involved now. I'm not really having as much fun as I used to, and they're dropping away from the game, or they're backing off considerably. And I think that's part of the reason why we've seen the decline. And, the industry, as you said, can argue back and forth, but the truth of the matter is, I know personally a lot of people that don't play as much anymore, and the bottom line is they're not enjoying it, and that's why they've gotten away from the game to the extent. Connie, I want to go back to you. Yes.
Ted, could I just say something here? I kind of circle back on this point about stress. When we start getting stressed out, most of us, we stop having fun. And so it really helps to be able to, oh my God, here I am. I'm having my stress reaction. And, oh my gosh, I have some ability to have that self-awareness. And I also have coaching that I've been able to internalize, or I can just look up. I can even just look up my iMap on, that I've got right here, or my coach can help me with it. And, oh boy, now I have some strategies that I can pull myself back from that, and I can start having fun again out there and doing better. Another aspect of the iMap, aspect that iMap measures is how we relate to others on the golf course. So kind of the social aspect of it, and how we're influenced by it, how we relate to others. And we just did an event with a corporate group a few weeks ago with some business executives, CEOs, and we went through their iMap My Golf reports in the morning, and then we were out there on the golf course, and I got to play a few holes with everybody, and it was really interesting. For example, this one CEO started playing badly, and he's generally a pretty sociable, friendly guy, but he was going, I just read in my report this morning, and I see it right now. I'm not hitting the ball well. I'm feeling embarrassed. Now I'm getting agitated. I'm speaking up. I'm not having fun. I'm withdrawing from everybody else. I'm making snide remarks, and he was losing his fun, losing his the impressions he was making from a business standpoint with his playing partners, and he was playing poorly. So he was able to just, with that awareness from his reports, go, oh my gosh, this is what's happening, and make the adjustments he needed to so he could have more fun, be managing his relationships better on the course, and play better golf.
Yeah, and that's it. You hit it right on the head. Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Jamie. Connie, tell us about what is iMap My Team? What is that process?
Yeah, iMap My Team is gives you a dashboard on your team, and we actually developed it at the request of a client who we had been doing a lot of work at the executive level. And she said to us, I love what you do at the executive level, but I have a 2,000-person organization here. And I can't afford all the way down at the 2,000-person level. So what do we do? So what we did is we created a software tool that connects people and builds relationships in the organization. So when people take this questionnaire, and this is using the high-performance questionnaire, they actually get some information about themselves that teaches them things like how to succeed under pressure or what to avoid with me. And then this collaboration tool is a very open environment. That person can also see, oh, what do I need to avoid with my boss? Or how do I present to my boss? If they have, they get insight right away on how to coach them, how to bring out the best in them, how to motivate them. And you can look at an entire team and instantly see where you might be having gaps in your team. If everybody is too much alike, you might be missing somebody that would bring a critical element or critical dimension to your team. So it creates not only a map of an individual, but then gives you a view of your whole organization or your team, and then empowers everybody with the information so that they can apply it and, build those relationships a lot more quickly.
Right. And I agree 100%. I want us to talk about, since we've alluded to it a number of times in the discussion tonight, about business golf. And I want to read something that Jamie had sent me. I believe this, David, is from the website. And since we're talking about stats, I'm just going to read out a couple. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just read a few stats from within the paragraph that she sent. Golf is still considered to be the number one leisure time activity among business professionals, as well as a leading recreational activity at corporate events, meetings, conventions, and so on and so forth. 80%, here's a stat for 80% of top executives of Fortune 500 companies are golfers. So there's two reasons on its own, Peter, would you agree, for those in the business world, and not necessarily Fortune 500, if 80% of the top Fortune 500 company executives are out playing golf and using it as an effective business tool, there's a reason that maybe some of the other folks out in business need to consider adding that to their repertoire, if you will.
I can in a couple of ways. The first one will be in character, and it'll generally be a wisecrack. And that usually goes something like this. On Monday morning when the board meets, they're not talking about the opera.
Right.
Secondly, if you look at Connie and Dave's book, Back on Course, they invited me to make a contribution, and I asked them whether or not the fact that golf is truly responsible for getting ESPN started would make a good story. Well, of course, you know what the answer to that was. And I'll tell you that Bill Rasmussen, the founder, and my golfing buddy, was the play-by-play announcer of the Hartford Whalers who got fired. Mm-hmm. And he asked me about 6 months later if I thought all sports television would work. And the next thing you know, we had started an organization that grew to become ESPN and went on the air 18 months later. How did that happen? Well, because Bill and I bought the rights at one point to the tour stop in Hartford, Connecticut, the radio rights, and we broadcast it. And we found that we had a good relationship, a good working relationship, and the next thing you know, the opportunity came along. It's a very long story. If you read Connie's book, you'll get a taste of it. You'll also get some other ones too. But there's absolutely no doubt. I've had a reasonably successful career, and every single relationship that I can think of, I can directly attribute back to golf. And
right,
whether it be the 10 years that I spent working with Mo Norman and developing the communication tools around the people who marketed his way to play, or
right.
Doing things for the PGA Tour, or doing things for companies like United Technologies and DuPont and PPG. They're all golf-related, and I can really track some of my successes to that. And meeting Connie, of course.
Right. And just on a side note, I actually had the pleasure of playing with Mo a couple times over the years when I was still back up in Canada. And
how good
very
was that?
Interesting. Oh yeah, I mean, in fact, I have a club. I don't even put it in my bag, but it was one of the products that, of course, Natural Golf was. I think it's a beryllium copper. I think it's a 5-wood, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
caught lightning in a bottle with those clubs. I still play those woods.
Yeah. They're great.
In my trophy case, I have Mo's wedge.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to have you back, Peter. We'll talk about Mo and some other things. But I just wanted to throw that there. He was a very interesting man, very passionate about his play and that. David, I want to ask you as well, and then Jamie, I'll give you an opportunity. Obviously, you guys incorporate a lot of business golf. Each touch. Again, Dave, I'll go with you first, and then Jamie, I'll let you wrap it up on that. But just the importance of working with some of the executives that you have, some of the things that they're looking to increase upon for business, and why is it so important to them to have golf in the mix?
Well, I think that since Connie and I published our book, there's actually a new infographic out that was published by a Forbes writer. It's actually now 90% of those that play the game, and really, kind of the catalyst for the book was when Connie and I were doing the executive golf schools. Certainly we. You fix somebody's slice, they think you can also fix their bottom line. But the combination of what we did at those executive golf schools would get those people coming to us and saying, so how do I use golf now as a tool? They loved everything about the game. They understood all of the cultural kind of pinnings of the game, of self-discipline and self-policing and being honest and all of those things. And we began to kind of coach executives not only on how to use this information within their companies, but how to use the game of golf to recruit employees, to prospects for business and things like that. So that all kind of led to the genesis of the book. And actually, I work with very highly placed executive types every day at the club, and our kind of mission since coming out with the book is golf and business didn't take a break when the economic downturn happened. It just moved into the shadows. It really just moved into the shadows. And the idea behind the book is to bring it out of the shadows and show, number one, that why it's important, what it can mean to an executive if they embrace the game and use it as part of their business strategy, and then gives them ways in which to do that. Gives them kind of a guidebook, if you will, for using the game. So,
right.
From my standpoint, there isn't business and golf. They are so intermingled that I don't separate them.
Right. Jamie, there's another aspect, I guess, as a business person, having golf incorporated or intertwined, as Dave just pointed out, and you sort of alluded that a little bit to the example that you gave a few moments ago. But the other thing is that it is also a great tool for not just networking and, obviously drumming up business, but it's also a way of observing not only employees, how they handle themselves on the golf course, but also prospective clients. You can tell a lot from a person, with 3 or 4 hours out in a golf course. And I'm sure that a lot of your clients have expressed that, what they've learned incorporating golf in their business life, how valuable that's been. It's not just about making deals, but it's also about drawing assessments with as I said, maybe a sales team or even prospective clients. They're able to gauge what type of individual they're doing business with or is working for their company by having them on the golf course, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that what happens on the golf course in business is that it's like a litmus test. You really get
right.
to learn about people, and it's like your playing partners are potentially your working and business partners, and so you're learning about them. You're also revealing a lot about yourself. In that regard, iMap is really a very helpful tool because if you're more self-aware, you can handle yourself better on a golf course. And the other part is that you want better golf skills. So with our golf schools, what we try to do is to both build golf skills so that you're better on the golf course and certainly at least better with etiquette and all of that sort of thing, but that you're also really paying attention to what you're revealing about yourself and what you're learning about your playing partners, because that's the relationship and rapport building is clearly the basis for relationship, and that's why sometimes we call the golf course a 4 or 5 hour sales call, that kind of thing. Something else I would add is that Connie and Dave have developed some really awesome, unique, innovative experiences using the golf course to simulate the business experience. And since I started working with them, I've just been, fortunate to get to join in the value and the fun of those experiences. So, for example, there's a team tee-off, which is divided in 9 holes. There's 3 different sections of 3 holes. But basically the team and the strategy that goes on, the leadership, the relationship, that all comes out in the team tee-off. There's strategic scramble. There's right. Driving it through the grass ceiling, which is a program for women. Connie and Dave can tell you more about. There's some other programs for sales, helping with salespeople using the golf course. So it's like you don't really have to do a ropes course to do team building. You can do it on the golf course, use golf, use the iMap assessments, and just really help your golf game and your business game and your leadership, your empowerment, your awareness, all kinds of stuff comes out. So highly valuable and really fun experiences.
Well,
hey, Ted, Connie, I'd like to add to that, sure. Ted, if I could.
Sure. Yeah, yes, please.
The genius of what Connie and Dave put together in these programs is it totally involves the non-golfer, which overcomes the objection of what about the people I have on my team who don't play golf, and right. It makes it an attractive day. Always, when I was managing some golf down at a resort in Florida, the meeting planners were, what are you going to do with the non-golfers? Well, they've got the answer to it, and it's really cool. I'm sure if you ask her, Connie will be able to describe how it works.
Right. Connie?
Thank you for saying that, Peter. That's so true. Yeah, everybody can be involved, golfers and not, and it really is a genius, the way that these programs have been designed by Connie and Dave.
So tell us, Connie, since Peter just gave you a great lead-in, tell us a little bit about some of the programs that and that's a great point for non-golfers out there. There's lots of folks, of course, that play golf, but there's also plenty that don't, and maybe maybe at some point in the future might get into the game. But for those that don't, how do you handle that particular group?
Well, like I remember doing a program once where I think we had like about 25 people, and 18 of them had never played golf before. And it's a program we call a team tee-off, and we really use the golf course as a classroom. And what we do is it's like playing a giant board game out on the golf course, and we put people in little business teams, and they're given a pot of money, and their whole goal is to be able to get a return on investment of that money. And so they put their strategies together in advance, and then once they leave the clubhouse, they have to implement the strategy that they put together, and it involves people, tools, and targets, 3 holes for each. And so we compensate for the non-golfers by having things like consultants out there, which are golf pros, that can take a shot for them if it's too difficult. It costs them some money, but then they have to make the business decision, is it worth the money? So there are a lot of different tools and techniques in the process to compensate for the non-golfer. But the important part is when you get back at the end of the day, the conversation is, how is this similar to or different from what happens at work? And the insights are just profound, because in a very safe environment, they've been able to illustrate what happens in the work environment, but they've never been able to talk about. And so we are able to facilitate some pretty deep conversations that will go back to the work environment in a very practical way.
Yeah, and that's a really great approach to it as well, because if you think about it, you're exactly right. There's a lot of people in the workplace that, and this is why I think golf and our everyday life really kind of go hand in hand, and especially our business life, because much like in our personal lives and business lives, out in the golf course, we're faced with many challenges, and decisions have to be made. And I like the team approach because, again, that simulates what goes on back at the office. It's not just one person always pulling the strings. Sometimes it's a group effort depending on the circumstances. So this really helps them to be able to work through some of the problem solving, if you will, in a fun way, without having to worry about necessarily answering to anybody, but and just adding a little money or something or some other incentive. But this really opens up a door for companies to have their employees engage, and making it fair enough that you don't all have to be great golfers. You can have some non-golfers in there that can participate and give their input as well. So everybody kind of gets a role, correct?
Yeah, and I'll tell you a kind of fun story about this too. One of the first times we did this, it was for a healthcare company, and we had the CEO and his team that were participating in this, and we divide them up into teams. And the CEO was on this one team, and one of his people on his team was a woman who happened to be 8 months pregnant. So in their strategy session, he really sandbagged. And so they get out there on the fairway, and I'm watching this from the sidelines. He's out there banging his club on the fairway going, I want to change this strategy. Because they were actually having to intentionally miss putts because they were playing so well. And so the way the game is set up, you have to hit targets and things like that. So it just killed him to have to intentionally miss a putt. Well, we get back in at the end of the day, and everybody is debriefing what they saw, how it was. And I just happened to bring up, I said, yeah, you should have seen Jim out there. He was banging his club on the fairway going, I want to change the strategy. The room went silent.
Right.
Nobody breathed anything until one guy kind of said, you do that to us all the time.
Right.
And that just, so the CEO turns and he goes, really? You mean I'm changing the strategy all the time? And it just led to this really, really important conversation that they needed to have. Yeah. So it's amazing what it brings out.
Yeah, and that goes to exactly, that was a great story that you shared. But Jamie, that goes back to what I just said a few moments ago. You learn a lot. It's not just about how to play golf and learning to play the game. by incorporating into business golf, you actually learn a lot about one another, how people handle things under stress. And this is where, as well, Connie, your product, iMap Golf, really comes into play, because now people are able to really, get into the inner nuances of their psyche, if you will, to explain how they handle things, and this really can open up a lot of doors, and I see it being a great tool, and obviously you guys have done it well. I just want to add, I mentioned earlier that I was going to throw out a few things from your bios, and I just want to read something just for the listeners out there, just to give you an idea of who we're dealing with here on the show. Connie Charles, of course, as I mentioned, is the CEO and founder of iMap Strategic Solutions, and also iMap Golf, as well as Dave Bisbee is the co-founder. But also she serves as an executive coach with a client base that includes Fortune 500 brands such as Boeing, Coca-Cola, and State Farm, just to name a few. So, obviously, our guests here are working, and Dave, of course, is also working with many Fortune 500 leaders as well. So this just goes to show you that obviously you guys have struck a nerve with iMap. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think we soothed a nerve.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That's a great one, Connie.
Go ahead, Dave. Sorry, Dave, you were going to say something? Or...
I told Connie, that's a great way to put it. We've we have been working diligently for 25 years to become an overnight sensation, and that's one of those things that when an opportunity comes along, which is like right now with as we talked about the PGA show and the focus on trying to move the needle, and where we think that we can move the needle is through getting organizations, corporations, the business golfer back to the golf course, taking advantage of everything that the game has to offer, and I think that being able to relate it not only to that this is something that helps them be a better golfer, it just helps them be a better, more successful person, and
right.
And being able to get it out there in front of people is doing things like this, being on a show like your show.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts are that, we're starting to work more with event planners, for example, who are looking for, a really interactive, a really fun, and yet a highly meaningful experience for their retreats, for example, with their management teams or for their executive retreat. And so, these are just great experiences that they can have. So it's it's not just kind of a speaker lecture or
right.
It's just a classroom experience. And when you can combine the indoor and the outdoor classroom, and we're doing it through golf, that's just a tremendous kind of thing that people who are in event planners are starting to get very excited about. We just did an event only a couple weeks ago for Vistage International, which is an organization of CEOs that I happen to speak for. And we held it out at Reunion Resort, which is in Orlando, and
right.
in partnership with the PGA, the North Florida PGA, and several of the pros participated in the instruction, and they've been involved with iMap Golf. We were really fortunate to use the facilities where Annika's Academy was up until last June, and it's just a tremendous facility. So, these kinds of partnerships, bringing together golf professionals and corporate events and teams, and then having a tool that is just so sophisticated as well as so much fun, like iMap, really presents an opportunity for some just tremendous kinds of training and learning experiences that serve people. It serves them as golfers. It serves them as business people and executives. And then they find, this even serves me in being a better parent or better partner or better friend.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think the other thing too, Jamie, with the corporate events, why I kind of like the approach that we've been talking about here tonight is, traditionally a lot of companies for years, when they would have an event that obviously had golf in there, and as Connie, you had mentioned earlier, and that is, there's a lot of people, in the office that maybe don't play golf and kind of feel left out because, the golfers are going to this event and they may go too, but they're kind of sitting in the background. So there's really nothing for them to do. And I'm sure it's not very exciting. And some of the strategies that you're incorporating into these events now allows people that traditionally are not golfers to be able to, feel inclusive as well in the process. And it's not just a matter of them sitting through lectures or seminars or what have you. They're actually getting in on the fun, and yet at the same time, they don't have to be, a 5 handicap to be able to join in the fun. So I like the approach that you guys have taken with this. Peter, I want to, if you're still there, I want to bring you back into the mix a little bit here, and I want to move on to another topic if we can, guys. And that's women's golf and some of the business golf initiatives that are taking place right now. And Peter, the reason I want to start with you, obviously being involved with ESPN, you see a lot of different sports things going on. What's your assessment of women's golf today? And where do you think what needs to happen within the industry to make some positive changes, if you will, in order to get more women involved in the game?
Well, having 6 sisters, I guess I do have the only male perspective that might be semi-legitimate, but I think Connie might speak to that a little bit better. But my attitude about it, I'm loving what is happening with the LPGA. I'm loving what's happening. I'm loving what's happening with the ESPNW, and where I see the globalization of the women's game, it's the PGA Tour has almost begun to react to it as they've started to talk about actually having a mixed team event, which has always been my dream. I started to build one when I was living in Naples, Florida. I think mixed team golf is such a blast that I've been playing in it competitively for years, and I've got a couple of really good players that I look forward to getting together with every year, and we try and whoop on people, and it's fun. And I also think the world is talking about we got to bring kids into the game. You got to bring kids in. Well, the kids don't have the money. If you bring women into the expensive game, maybe you got a shot, and a lot more of the intensity can be spent there. And if I may, because I know we might be sliding down toward the bottom of the hour, and you may have some other plans, I just feel that somewhere along the line in my golf DNA, I've always tried to figure out ways to give back to the game, and I created an organization called Sober Golf for those of us who are in recovery. It's kind of like a recovery golfing dating service, if you would, and I've got another organization called Golf Fest, and that helps people fundraise. But Connie and iMap My Golf and iMap My Team, a perfect blend of those 2 products for the Walker Cup, the Curtis Cup, even the Ryder Cup and the Solheim Cup would be a great gift to golf coaching. And I'm sure there would be trickle-down benefit.
I'll put a bow
for
on.
Sure. Okay. Well said. I guess what I'm looking for, and Connie and Jamie and Dave, of course, I want you all to add some comments on this. But the reason why I sort of phrased the question the way I did is I agree, Peter, with what you said about the LPGA and ESPNW and that. I think there's some great initiatives happening in the golf world. And Cindy Miller and I, of course, who work together on the Women of Golf show Tuesday mornings. We've had the pleasure of hosting some great business professionals that were women that understand the benefits of golf, but there's still a segment of the population of women who, for whatever reason, whether it's a time management issue or what it is, just have not gravitated to the sport. And, I'm wondering what we can do. And I like Peter, I agree exactly what you said about, bringing more women in, we'll get more kids involved. There's lots of kids certainly involved in golf, but it's all through filter programs to mini tours and things like that, and junior golf camps and so forth, which is fantastic. But not everybody wants to be an aspiring LPGA or PGA professional. We'd like to get them just out there to have some fun. So, Connie, I'm going to start with you, and then Jamie, I want you, and then also Dave as well. What are some of the things that the industry specifically needs to change or do differently, or what have you, in order to tap into that market, not just the business, the women's markets, but just the average young lady out there that maybe hasn't been exposed to the game, that we need to at least introduce it. How do we go about doing that?
Well, I'm not so sure. Maybe Jamie can comment on this. I'm not so sure it's an industry issue as it is a business issue. And clearly, like in the book, there's stories of executives and how they have used golf. And my favorite is of an executive who was talking with his mentor. It was early in his career when he hit his 30s, and he was trying to get advice on what grad school he should go to get his MBA. And his boss/mentor said to him, forget the MBA, go learn how to play golf. And he did.
Right.
And it has, he's now CEO of a major company in the Beltway. But, I keep thinking, how come women aren't doing that? Because it will make a difference in your career. And
no
so
doubt.
that's where, women will take the time when they see the business value. And discretionary time is, I think, more limited for women than it is for men. And so if it's made a part of the business environment, like you actually get, to take a couple of days a year to go work on your golf game at a golf school, that's what's going to get women into the game. And it's finding ways to get them up that learning curve much more quickly. And it's as you were saying, not every kid wants to become a PGA pro, and it's the same with women. You don't need to get that far up to be able to use it for business purposes. And then it becomes part of your recreational life as well. But I think the starting point for women really needs to be in the corporate environment. And so we're developing some, in fact, we've got an event we're going to be sponsoring in June. It's an invitation-only event, but for very senior women in corporations who really understand the connectedness of business and golf and how it can advance their careers. In fact, our motto is kind of the road to the top is a cart path. So, that's what we're helping women really understand. And then you'll give time for things that have a dual purpose, both recreational and business.
Right, exactly.
And, Ted, I might jump in on kind of coattail here, but I think from an industry standpoint, because I actually go to work at a golf club every day, and am in the industry on a day-to-day basis, and I've said it before out loud in front of our industry peers. The industry needs to reclass the way they measure a golf experience. We're so programmed, and part of that is the business side of it, that a golf experience is 18 holes. Well, 18 holes takes time, and 18 holes cost money. There are a lot of other ways to engage in the game and have a golf experience. Look at Topgolf. Look at the millions of people that will go have a golf experience at a Topgolf facility, and I think their statistics are that they're going to bring 700,000 new players into the game this year, and it's because they're being introduced in a different way than you got to go stick a peg in the ground and you got to play 18 holes, or that's not golf. So I think part of it is the industry has to kind of change the way that they approach and how to kind of change into bite-sized pieces the way someone can engage in the game.
Yes. I think there's one other thing, Jamie. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah,
Go ahead,
I just
Jamie.
wanted to say when you were talking, kind of on the industry initiative side of it, the commissioner of the LPGA, Mike Wan, at the show gave a talk, and he said that the growth of girls golf has doubled, I would say, more than doubled. I remember I helped start a girls golf program, a girls golf site in San Diego more than a decade ago, and when there were 100-some sites, we're up to nearly 400 girls golf sites, and girls golf, LPGA, USGA girls golf programs now are it's like tenfold, something like 64,000 young girls are playing golf. And so that's fantastic. And I remember just a couple of years ago, we had a reunion at Stanford. I went to Stanford, played a little bit on the golf team then. And so through all these, 3-4 decades, there were golfers who had played on the team. So many of them were 30, 40, 50 years old, and I talked with them, and they were obviously good players, good enough to play college golf, and they all said that their golf ability was the single most important business tool that they had, in addition to whatever their expertise was in their particular area. They were a lawyer or whatever, but it was their golf game that served them so well, and having a good golf game. So, what we're trying to do is with girls' golf sites, and then there are actually it's surprising the number of golf scholarships that are actually available out there for young girls. So, and what we're finding now and what we're trying to do is work with women who did not have that opportunity. They didn't become golfers when they were young. And so now they're in the business world. They realize they need to be in the game, both business-wise and golf-wise, and that golf is such an important tool. So, it's getting in the game now and giving them those abilities. So that's what some of our trainings are about. And Connie and I are developing more of them. We'll be coming out with those more. But the one that you just mentioned about invitation only, if anybody listening to the program wants an invitation, they can certainly get in touch with us.
Okay, very well. I think there's another segment of the market, though, that I want to just briefly touch on, and then we'll sort of wrap things up. But I agree exactly with the comments that were just made. I think that there's a lot of women that are in business that want to, sort of add to their repertoire and maybe add it as a business tool. But there's also a segment of the population of women who maybe are not business executives or maybe don't own their own business. They might even be stay-at-home moms. And I think for a lot of them, their way of engaging in activities is involving their children. If their children are interested in something, then more often than not, they're going to be interested in. And I think another way for the industry to open a door that maybe hasn't really, or ring a bell that hasn't really been rung, is to target more family golf. And I think that by reaching out to women particularly and saying, okay, you don't have to necessarily be an executive, but if you've got some kids, we want to, we have a program here where you can bring the kids to the golf course, and then eventually, dad might get involved as well, and it becomes a family affair. And I think that there's a market there as well that may be untapped right now. Your thoughts on that, Dave or Connie or Jamie or Peter?
I belong to a
I
club
think that
in.
is. Yeah.
Sorry,
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Peter. Just to say that I think that's a very good direction for it. There are family vacations and things like that 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 are marketed to resorts that include some activities. Well, doing something that was really to involve the family in a learning experience in golf, and then having a golf experience together, I think it's a great way to generationally move the game along.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why I sort of posed that thought is, it's just been my experience, and I agree, Jamie and Dave and Peter and that, and Connie, what you said, that there is some great opportunities for executive women to get involved with golf, and there are many benefits. But I think that we have to be careful that we don't sort of omit a segment of the population that maybe doesn't fit into that category. I mean, after all, just here, in the United States, we're, 300 plus million people here. And I think last count, there was about 25 million in the U.S. that actually played golf, and, whatever mixture or sprinkle you want as far as percentages. So there's still many others that could come into the game for future. And I think that there's many ways that we've talked about tonight to grow the game, but I think there's other ways. And I'll give you a good example. Years ago, Las Vegas, and I know this isn't the greatest example, but it kind of proves the point, changed their philosophy to have more family activities as opposed to just sort of the hardcore gambling. That they had other things that they did out there that were enticing families. Now, obviously, they've kind of gone back a little bit but I think the golf industry, because not everybody can afford to go to resorts, not everybody can afford to do that, but I think there's initiatives that maybe could be taken, throughout the industry to get more family involvement. Dad may already be playing, Mom may already be playing, but I think this might be a great way through some different initiatives to get the family sort of out there doing stuff instead of the kids sitting at home playing, or tweeting or on Facebook or something like that. Get the families involved, and I think the younger that the kids get involved, the more apt they're going to get, to playing golf as the years pass on, and then whatever they go from there, whether they play collegiately or just do it for fun, is entirely up to them. But do you see that, guys, as maybe a door that could be open as well?
Well, anecdotally, where I play, as we know, Saturday morning and Sunday morning are kind of like Oceanside real estate, those tee times. But close to Oceanside real estate is Friday afternoon and Friday evening. And
right.
when the light is long enough, from 6 o'clock till sunset, which around here can be as late as 9:15 or 9:10, a family can, for $30, bring as many as 4 people to play until dark.
Right.
And it's amazing to see what that brings out. Yep. That brings out mom and 3 kids. That brings out dad and 3 kids. That brings out mom and dad and 2 kids. That brings out $60 with dad and 3 kids and mom and 3 kids.
Right.
It's an amazing time to stay off the golf course if you're interested in playing real quick. But
right.
It's fabulous to see, and it's an amazing promotion.
I guess the reason, exactly, and I think that's fantastic. And I guess the reason why I wanted to pose that challenge was, traditionally the only time you really saw families connected with golf was on a miniature golf course or a mini putt or something like that, which, can be fun for them as well. But I would really like to see more of what you're talking about, Dave, out in the golf course, where more especially with a lot of courses that have been hurting over the this last decade or so, with the way the economy's been. I think that may be a way that they could sort of bring up their bottom line a little bit by reaching out to families and not just going after the corporate golf and going after the business golf, but maybe other ways that they could be a little more creative in how they do their approach. But guys, I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's been a very interesting and in-depth conversation, and I'm going to go down the list here. Connie, I'm going to start with you. 2 things I would like for you to do is let the folks first and foremost know how they can learn more about iMap and maybe get involved for the teacher professionals that are tuning in tonight, and even for the amateur golfers that might be listening into the show as well. Where can they go to learn more about iMap? And then I would like for you to share how they can go about getting your book.
Great. Well, first of all, our website is imapgolf.com, and there is a Contact Us button there that you can either email us or you can call us at 1-800-815-0185, and we're on the East Coast, so that's between like 9 and 5:30 East Coast time. Then to get the book, you can go to Amazon and get just type in Back on Course, and it's a book by Connie Charles and Dave Bisbee, and you'll see that there. You can get it in either an ebook format or you can purchase a hard copy, and it's a beautiful book, so it makes a great gift too.
Perfect. Well said. Dave, I'm going to let you go next. Tell us a little bit about Seven Canyons Golf Club.
Well, if you can imagine putting a golf course in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, that kind of describes it. It's Sedona has been described as the most beautiful place on the planet. Everybody that's on the line with us here has been here, and I think would agree. And it's a spectacular place. The golf course, the club at Seven Canyons, is a Weiskopf design, which it's a little bit of a throwback. It's a par 70. It's not a beach up lawn course. It's just a beach up skinny course, and would be a good course in any setting, but in our setting, it's spectacular.
Fantastic. And how can the folks that are tuning in reach out to you? Well,
you can. Our website is sevencanyons.com, and the 7 is spelled out. You can see some pictures, do some flyovers of the holes, and you can also find me through imapgolf.com.
Perfect. And just let me throw this out there since you mentioned Weiskopf design. Tom was one of my favorite golfers growing up. So if by chance in a conversation or whatever, I would love to interview Tom Weiskopf. So if you just happen to be passing by or what have you, just spread the word. Say I would love to have him on the show.
Well, I'll do that. Absolutely.
And I'm serious. I would love to. He was one of my favorite golfers growing up. Just a phenomenal golfer, and I know he's done very well in the design business as well. Mr. Peter Fox, I know you've got lots of great things going on. Would you like to share with the folks as well? Anyone that might be interested in reaching out to you as well and learning more about some of the things that you're doing?
Well, sure. As a lifetime, not lifetime, but as a long-time guerrilla marketeer and a serial communicator and a serious golfer, most of what you would want to find out about me and maybe even take a look at some of my work that I've done for the golf industry as well as some of the big names in business, you can find it at like Gunslinger, only Penslinger, NC, Penslinger, North Carolina .blogspot.com. PenSlingerNC.blogspot.com. That's Peter.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And certainly last but not least, Jamie, share with the folks how they can reach out to you as well.
Well, I'm actually coordinating for PGA and LPGA teaching professionals, work with iMap. So if any pros out there are listening, or maybe students who you'd like your pros to get involved, they can just contact me, and I'm going to give my phone number. I think that's the easiest. It's 760-492-GOLF 4653. So 760-492-4653, and the programs that we're doing for corporate work, for event planners, for women in golf, again, give me a call or contact me through the iMap office would be a good way to do that.
Perfect. And lastly, Jamie, if you don't mind, since you're going to be coming back and joining me next week on the show as well, why don't you give a little sneak peek of who you're going to be bringing with you next week?
Well, if I wasn't excited enough about Connie and Dave and Peter, which has been fantastic, we're really excited next week to have Shirley Spork on, who is one of the 3 still alive of the 14 founders of the LPGA. So she is just awesome, and she's going to be talking about what it was like in the early days of women's golf, getting the tour going, her experiences with the Babe Dixon Zaharias, and the Founders film is a film that has been produced about the founders of the LPGA. It's being seen in a lot of film festivals, winning awards, and I've invited the producer to join us of the film. So It's going to be a
Perfect.
real walk through the history of women's golf, and both the tour and the teaching division, which Shirley was the mastermind of. And, you really want to hear and meet Shirley. She's awesome. We're really lucky to have her.
Well, I'm looking forward to that interview, and I enjoyed having you folks on tonight. I want to express my appreciation to Connie Charles, Dave Bisbee, Peter Fox, and of course Jamie Leno Zimron. Thank you very much, guys, for coming on the show tonight and sharing about iMap Golf. So go to imapgolf.com to learn more. And I appreciate your time and efforts to come on the show and share a little bit more about what I think is certainly going to be revolutionary. And you guys are welcome to come back anytime. And Peter, I may end up reaching out to you. I think we might have a story here we can talk about, maybe share some Mo stories or what have you. But I think I might like to have you back on as well as you, Dave. I think I'd like to have you back on again on a separate show. So I'll reach out through Jamie to both of you. And Connie, you have an open invitation anytime to let us know what's happening with iMap Golf and iMap Strategic Solutions. So please feel free to reach out anytime. But guys, thank you very much for joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks so much, Ted.
Thanks, Ted. Look forward to
Bye-bye.
it. Bye-bye.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, that was my very special guest tonight. As I mentioned, the co-founders of iMap Golf, Connie Charles and Dave Bisbee, as well as Peter Fox from ESPN joined us tonight, and my good friend, Golf Sensei and Master Instructor herself, Jamie Leno Zimron. What a great show tonight. Very interesting discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And as Jamie alluded to, next week we're going to be having a real legend of women's golf. Shirley Spork is going to be joining us here on Golf Talk Live. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Women of Golf show. That's with LPGA Professional and Legends Tour players Cindy Miller and I together interview some of the great women in golf and business golf virtually on the planet. Lots of great guests coming up on that show as well. And we're going to be rolling out some Symetra Tour and LPGA players coming out here shortly in the weeks to come as well, adding them into the mix. So we're looking forward to some great shows on the Women of Golf. And also, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the Coach's Corner will be starting on March the 2nd. For those of you that have never listened to that segment of the program, that is a panel discussion where I invite a number of teacher professionals and golf coaches and so forth for a panel discussion each and every week beginning March 2nd throughout the rest of the calendar year. It's a 2-hour program, of course, Golf Talk Live traditionally, and the first hour I dedicate to the Coach's Corner where we have some panel discussions. We sometimes will field questions. This year we're going to do things a little bit differently on the show. I'm going to actually have on 2 of the shows of the month, I'm going to be featuring a special guest joining the panel with specific topics that we're going to be covering and getting them to sort of open up the dialogue and discussion. But always a lot of fun. The key purpose, of course, is to educate you guys out there and to give you some things to think about, not only for your own game, but things to maybe think about in business as well or your own personal lives. So we're always trying to help you in all those areas. But I want to give a special thanks to Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide for all your continued support of the program. South Coast Golf Guide, of course, is a great publication here in the southeastern part of the United States. If you go to southcoastgolfguide.com, you'll see the latest edition there, the e-version of the guide, but you can also get your hot little hands on a hard copy, and you don't necessarily have to be down here in the Southeast to get one. Of course, if you're down here visiting, playing some great golf, virtually anywhere from Texas right over to here in Florida, most of the major clubs and some of the golf shops as well, like Edwin Watts and some of the other golf facilities as well. Even here where I am in Panama City Beach, Florida, some of the major condos carry them in their foyers. So look for South Coast Golf Guide. But if you're not coming down to the area right away, but you'd like to know about some of the great courses within the publication that you can play, and of course it includes all of the tee time information as far as where to call and the yardages and things like that for many of the courses in the publication. You can go to South Coast Golf Guide and you can request a copy be mailed to you, even if you're up in Canada. They'll mail you a copy. Jonathan will make sure you get one there in your hot little hands. So you can kind of plan out, depending on where you're going, especially here in the south, for the winter months. Sometimes it's a little cool up there in Canada or the northeastern part of the United States. Maybe you want to come down here, or maybe you're already down here. You can request a copy be sent to you if you're not able to access it otherwise. Or you can just go online, southcoastgolfguide.com. Mr. Jonathan Laird is more than happy to help you there. And I want to thank all of the other great folks that have supported the show over the years: Meredith Kirk, Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, Mr. Bernie Pinder, Sean Kelly, and of course Mr. Peter Doyle. But most importantly, I want to take this opportunity to thank all the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning in to Golf Talk Live each week. I do have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teacher professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs stop by. And it's really through their participation, guest appearances, that have helped make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. So again, thank you to many of the supporters and sponsors of the show, as well as all of you listeners out there for tuning in faithfully each and every week. So have a great week. I will see you next Thursday right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great weekend.